it all starts with what's in it for them. Anytime I reach out to someone, that's why I love having a podcast, guys. What's in it for them? I want to consider putting you on my show. I want to highlight you to my audience. I'll create all the content. I'll do all the micro stuff. I'll edify you. I'll promote you. All you got to do is sit down and tell me your truth for 45 minutes. It's a great ask. What's in it for them? So there's so many ways we could do it, but think about what's in it for them and maybe how your services and your unique skills can service them, rather than calling them up and just trying to pitch them a product when you just met the person, you know?
And we're back. It's Over a Pint, the most popular business podcast in Milwaukee. We focus on the fast-paced world of marketing, and this is told through the eyes of industry veterans, guests included. No theory here, guys. This is real-world, practical experience. Along with me today, the wheelman, Mr. Kurt Lingle, Vice President of Celtic Advertising. Celtic is a full-service, award-winning agency located in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward. And you got me, Pat McGovern, Director of New Business Development at Acedia, an award-winning digital agency also located here in Milwaukee. Today we are wrapping with Ben Albert. Who is Ben? Well, this brother is a lot of things. He's a podcast host of Real Business Connections. He's the founder and owner of Balbert Marketing. And you know what else, Kurt Lingle? He's also part of the Utopia Networking Group.
Oh, yeah.
Same one that you and I are a part of.
Family.
Ben, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited to chat with you boys. This is going to be fun.
Oh,
this
cool.
will be good. This will be really good. Yeah. Ben, it's called Over a Pint for a reason. You know what that reason is?
Drinking a pint.
We're talking about what we've got in front of you. So, Kurt, when you went to the when you ran out for a minute, Ben was showing me a little bit of what he's got there. Ben, what do you have?
Yeah, so I'd love if you could guess what this is.
What is that some sort of, is that like a fruit beer of some sort? That's kind of some.
That's good. I thought it was a bloody.
You're spot on. It's Big Berry.
Yeah.
So it's a blueberry sour fruit beer. Big Berry Bean, it's called.
Is that a local craft beer, Ben?
Yeah, so it looks like a collab with Resurgence and Mafia. I believe those are both upstate New York beers. I did one of those classic Wegmans craft a pack, so this is the first time I've had it myself. So,
wow, very cool.
Yeah. So for people not watching the video, to me it looks more like a Bloody Mary, but it is a blueberry beer.
Yeah.
And I happen to like sours and that fruity kind of beer, so that's right up my lane. Mr. Lingle, what do you got?
Well, Pat, I think this might be the first in almost, how long has the podcast been on? Are we going on like a year and a half or
46?
Yeah. Yeah, this might be a first. Full transparency, I am getting over a cold. So I think on every single podcast, I've always had a beer. Today, I am going with a coffee with my nice Ice Ace Churro mug. So I'm not going to even fake it, but this is the first. I feel lame. But Pat, and I am sporting a hat. Great brewery, Highland Brewing, Asheville. I've been there. Awesome brewery. I love what they're doing. So we will pump Highland Brewing Company out of Asheville, North Carolina, because I was there last summer. I'm going to go there again this summer after a hike and drink some of their beer. They're good people, good beer. So there you have it. I'm sticking with the theme still somewhat.
Awesome. And guys, I've got a lakefront brewery. I got their Raspberry Nimbus, which is can that get into focus there? Not too much. Anyway, it's again, this is raspberry lime, Ben. So if you like a little bit more of the fruity thing, this is really good. Kurt, let's just stick on this for a minute. Then we're gonna exclude Ben from this. But right by the agency, right by us, Broken Bat. Have you been in there yet?
You know what? I have not been into the new location. I was actually in the old location, which was on Buffalo, which was, I think, like literally a block from our agency's office. But I haven't been to the new one. I've heard good things. Have you?
Yeah, next time when you're feeling better and you're down in the office, let me know. We'll grab a pint there. Yeah,
I
they got
love
some
it.
really good beers. Really good beers.
Dynamite.
Cool. Ben Albert, thank you so much, sir, for being on the podcast. This is awesome. Before we get into it, this is my first question for you. The three of us have got something in common. We all know David Mamano. How did you connect with David? David, and for those guys, again, listeners not familiar, David is pretty amazing guy. He was on episode number 33. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a TEDx speaker. He does a ton of stuff. And I know you guys are in the kind of the same proximity geographically. So Ben, how did you get connected with David?
Yeah, we're both born and raised in the same city, Rochester, New York.
Okay.
And we can talk about many legs of my story, but one of my podcasts, Rochester Business Connections, literally 3-4 people nominated him. Every time I have a guest on, I ask for nominations for the show. David Mamano. So he came on the show and we started fostering a friendship from there. He's like episode 56 and I'm in the 110s right now. So
Awesome.
He's back in the catalog and now him and I are good friends. So David's a great guy.
That's cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Ben, we don't want to talk about David. I mean, screw him. Okay. I mean, this is about you today. So for everybody listening, give us the elevator speech about Ben Albert. What do you do? How do you do it? Just give us a little bit of a lowdown and Ben, really kind of your origin story of how you got into the marketing space.
Yeah. So I like to joke that I ask questions for a living. And what I mean by ask questions for a living is there's two legs. I'm a podcast host. There's 5 shows all on the Real Business Connections Network. That's where I get to highlight incredible business people and really try to move the needle on 1 million business careers, actually move the needle and do it, one conversation at a time. Then at the marketing firm, I genuinely believe that marketing can't be square peg, round hole. So again, I go back to asking questions for a living, determining a tailor-made approach for the business to make sure that I'm actually a good fit for them and to make sure we can be successful. So that would be the elevator version of what I do. I'm a big believer of holding someone by the hand and walking them to the promised land rather than actually just, hey, do this, do that, do this, do that. So again, tailoring that approach and really working with clients. And I think I got that personality from the fact when I was young, super quiet kid, right, guys? So I never knew I'd be a marketing guy. I never knew that I'd have a podcast. It still scares me and I'm still sweating a little bit, even though I've done hundreds of these because I was so darn quiet when I was a kid. I swear to God, I'd be like holding my crotch because I had to pee, but I'd be afraid to ask permission to use the restroom, or I didn't even know how to order a cheeseburger. I'd have my mama order the cheeseburger for me. And I was beat up and bullied, and I was a basketball player, very talented, very good basketball player. Arrogantly, I think I was world class. But the thing here is everyone hit a massive growth spurt, and I stayed the exact same age, same size basically through my entire teenage years. I was the short kid, second shortest person in school behind Olivia Lee, little Asian girl, so I wasn't the shortest. Now, the reason I tell all this backstory is right around, becoming an adult, graduating high school, moving into college, I found my tribe, which was in the music scene. And I love music. And the quiet kid who would barely even open his mouth suddenly was the loudest person in the room because I loved promoting bands and advocating for great talented people and amplifying their voices quite literally. Now, it's beautiful that I found marketing because, again, I didn't expect to go in this direction. But all of us, we have a unique opportunity to do just that. We take talented people who do great in business but don't understand marketing, and we get to build community of clients, partners, the right employees as well, the right culture, and really amplify businesses. So when it all started with amplifying musicians and injecting steroids into everything they do, now I get to amplify small to medium-sized businesses and allow them to serve more people. So that's like a whole life story in a minute or two.
Awesome.
So let's stop there. I just love to tell that, to let everybody know I'm really passionate about what I do.
There's a lot there, Ben, and thanks for sharing all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. I'm just gonna bounce around, and Kurt, jump in when
Yeah.
whenever, right?
For sure.
But like, one of the things that you said, and I'm just curious about this, Ben. Again, we're gonna flippy flop all over the place, but one of the things you mention is you ask a lot of questions. You've got that on your LinkedIn profile. I love that. I think that is super cool. And you talk about asking questions to see if you're a good fit, right? We're all in agency kind of business. We're all in marketing, right? And people who are listening to this are marketers as well. And I think that's a very, very important trait and ability to have is, am I going to be a good fit for you? I'll admit this. I'm always looking to try to, how do you close somebody? How do you make sure that, like, how do I get them to that point? But I probably should pump the brakes a little bit and see if they are a good fit, right?
100%.
How do you do that? What are the questions? What are the telltale signs beyond the obvious? It's like pricing, like if they don't have a budget or, right? But what are the telltale signs that's like, I just don't think we're going to be able to work together, right? What have you learned in your experience? I'd just love to hear some of those, know some of those signs and some of those questions that you ask to get to those.
I like this, and we're kind of moving into a sales conversation, and I like that. I think it starts with mindset. I think you can have the perfect questions in the world, but if you're in misalignment and you have a bad mindset, you're going to fail anyways. So I go in realizing that there's millions of businesses on this earth. There's thousands, if not tens of thousands of businesses right here in my community. So I don't need this sale. I don't need this client. And honestly, they don't need me either. So I go in with that qualification, just realizing that I need to qualify them too. I'm not just there to pitch my products and benefits and features. I like hungry business people with high growth potential that understand the value of marketing. And if they aren't in that category, we're probably going to have a disaster relationship. So it comes in, maybe telling a story, like I said, like I like the underdog. I like the little guy. I want growth-oriented business people. Pat, Kurt, how do you see yourselves? Where do you see yourself going in 3, 5, 10 years? What are your goals? Because I want to see if I can actually help you get there and make sure we're aligned in our values here. Then you let them talk and dive deeper. Like, well, why do you think we haven't reached those goals yet, though? Are there systems that maybe need fine-tuning? So it's, again, just diving deeper. It depends on where the conversation goes. But it's going in, not needing the sale, wanting to make sure that there's a mutual alignment so you can actually help, and then asking questions that at the end of the day allow them to sell themselves if it is a good fit. Allow them to see, instead of being like, hey, Pat, there's a problem, it's asking questions like, why haven't we got there yet, Pat? What's going in our marketing process that's stopping us from reaching our potential? And then allowing the business owner to find out what their problems are and what their values are. And if my services can solve that problem, I can jump in and do that. But if they can't, that's where having a good network of referral partners come into play. And before you know it, you give a referral and you make a friend for life for doing the right thing. So that's my sales philosophy on the whole thing.
That's awesome.
Two things that you said that I picked up on, Ben, which I really appreciate. I was kind of waiting for you to kind of like, as you're talking through this a little bit, like, okay, what happens when you find someone and it's not a fit? And my brain right away was, I'm the same way. It's kind of like, you just kind of know, but I always love to be able to say, hey, it's not me, but I know someone. I don't know why, but I always want to know someone for someone. That's the first thing. The other thing too is I like how when you're talking about fit, I think it's smart and I think it's easier said than done. It sounds so easy on paper, but and I don't know, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. We always think of it this way at our agency, that what we do is like a marathon. And when you run a marathon, you have to really get along, enjoy, have synergies with the people you're running the marathon with, because if you don't, it's going to be brutal and painful. But when you enjoy and you sync with the person you're running this long distance race with, good things happen. It may be a different way of explaining, but it kind of, that's where my brain was going right away. I'm like, I know where Ben's coming from. Like, we kind of think that way too. It makes sense.
I couldn't agree more. Well, one of my mentors, Brad Lee, says relationships are the new currency. Relationships are the new economy. They're the new currency. And just like that, do we want to be working with people that will run that marathon with, or it doesn't matter what the income is. If we can't fulfill the orders, if we're miserable, if we have a bunch of chargebacks, that's not a good way to run a business. So couldn't agree more, Kurt. You want to build relationships with clients that you want to run that marathon with.
Ben, you and I haven't known each other all that long. I mean, it's a couple months, right? We started connecting early part of this year, which seems like a million years ago, but it's only been a few months. But one of the things that really I just intuitively feel about you is that you are just a hell of a networker. You just seem like you've, in a very cool and genuine way. For the people, for us, and me and Kurt, and the people listening, give us your approach on networking. How do you view it? Right? How do you look at it? How do you go about it? Like, give us some of your insights.
Great question.
And I love this because we could do a 10-part series on it. I think if we were to get to the absolute core from 100,000-foot view, it's always, how can I help you? It's how can I help you unconditionally? And here's the key: when you look at a strategic, viewpoint, the more people you help, the more help's going to come your way. It's that whole karma thing. It's the whole reciprocation. So every time I meet someone, sometimes I don't have the perfect introduction, so I don't force it if I don't. But every time I meet someone, I do my best to make 1, 3, 5 introductions, or at the very least, figure out what they need and who they want to meet and see if my network can serve them. So when I go and let's say I meet, 30 people in the course of 2 months on a one-to-one basis, which is actually a lot, 30 one-on-one meetings, I'll make 50 introductions. Now, I might only get 10 introductions out of that, but that's quite all right because those 10 introductions are incredible vetted introductions from good people I'm building a relationship with. So it all starts with what's in it for them. Anytime I reach out to someone, that's why I love having a podcast, guys. What's in it for them? I want to consider putting you on my show. I want to highlight you to my audience. I'll create all the content. I'll do all the micro stuff. I'll edify you. I'll promote you. All you got to do is sit down and tell me your truth for 45 minutes. It's a great ask. What's in it for them? So there's so many ways we could do it, but think about what's in it for them and maybe how your services and your unique skills can service them, rather than calling them up and just trying to pitch them a product when you just met the person,
The way you describe the networking, I love it too, because Pat, we've had this conversation. Some people, they hate the word networking. It's like, you might as well be pushing them off a cliff, like networking.
Yep.
But the way you describe it, it's organic, and it's just a part of your DNA. I mean, I'm picking up on like, well, it's just kind of, call it what you want to call it. I'm here to help people. I'm here to meet people. I'm here to figure out if, it's so organic, and it's just probably become so intertwined with who you are, which I love. I guess, question for you, Ben, why do people, obviously people are good at it, you learn, but why is it that so many that we come across, whether it's a colleague or someone, they hate it? Network. What's your thought?
That's a tough one because I think it's individual, and I'll be the first one to admit I explained I was a quiet kid and I was very timid most of my life. Big, crazy in-person meetings. I'm 5'9", so I'm a shorter guy. Big dudes in suits. I'm more of like a leather jacket kind of guy. Sometimes I just feel like I don't fit in. And sometimes I get nervous. So I've been there, and I'll be at networking events. And one thing that I love that what I do is when I'm connecting and positioning myself as a connector, I don't need to have the greatest things to say. I just ask a couple questions and see if I can help connect the dots. A friend of mine's coined it, but it's a chief dot connector. It's like the new CDC, but a chief dot connector, going in and figuring out how you can connect the dots. But I'm scared. crapless. I don't know if I can swear, but I'm scared at some events. But one thing that's worked good for me is virtual, because Ben Albert at his core wants to be able to go deep. That's why I like having a podcast, because I want to go deep with people. So one-on-one meetings and virtual meetings are great because there's so little distraction. People are in their pajama pants in the courtesy of their own home. They'll spend 45 minutes with me and we'll talk about the meaning of life. So I guess my only point is I'm only giving examples from my experience. The listener needs to think, well, am I extroverted, introverted? Why do I feel icky? And kind of find the style that works best for them. But the only mistake we can make as business people is to sit in our room and not shake any hands and not meet any people. How are we going to grow our business if we're not starting conversations? So choose your personal style. It can be socially through LinkedIn. It can be in person. It can be virtually. But again, the old adage is the only mistake we can make is not doing anything at all, right?
I love it.
Right on. Ben, let's talk a little bit more about the podcast. You mentioned this Real Business Connections. You gotta give us the background on it. How did you think about it? How did you start approaching it? Let's start there.
Sure. So, wow, it wasn't a pretty start to my journey. So to break down the bullet points, COVID hits. We don't have to talk about that. The world just went, it was crazy. And I was stressed and I was depressed and I was furloughed from work. I was a sales executive at a marketing firm, and our number one product was a video production product that we did nationally. So okay. Texas, California, New York City, anywhere you can imagine, video production's not happening and sales aren't occurring. So of course, reasonably so, they furlough me. And I'm applying for other jobs and nothing's landing. So I didn't even think of myself as an entrepreneur or a business owner or a podcast host, but I was like, hey, my back's against the wall. Let's try something new. You guys know this laptop right in front of me is all I need to start a marketing firm. So I went on LinkedIn and kind of played with the idea of starting a business podcast. Again, I didn't have a name. I didn't have any episodes yet. But I was reaching out like, Kurt, I see that you're a successful business person. We went to the same school. Congrats on making it big time. I'm flirting with this idea of starting like a Rochester business show. Would you want to be on it? And not everybody responds, but the ones that did, I swear like 3 out of 4 said, yes, I'd love to come on your show. So before you know it, I had a business podcast with endless opportunities for guests. So we launched Rochester Business Connections, which was a locally based show, and did 22 episodes in the month of November 2020. So November 2020, did an episode a day, Monday through Friday for the entire month. I planned on just doing a 2-week launch, but I would ask for nominations, as I talked about before, and people would give me 2, 3. So I went from sales executive, Texas. I had Milwaukee clients. I had Wisconsin clients all over the place. No Rochester business connections, even though I'm born and raised in Rochester. I was the music kid, the hippie, and I worked in corporate, so I didn't really network locally. I went from this corporate role to being like the top Rochester, New York based podcast. Now that's a very small category, but I was the biggest shark in that category and people loved coming on my show. So that's really how I built my business and built the podcast. Nowadays we've rebranded to Real Business Connections because we have a few different shows. I still have the local show, but now we have like a local show and a national show so we can service the local community and service globally at the same time as well. So that's the inception story of the podcast and the business. They kind of were started at the exact same time. Hey, it's easy to do 22 episodes when you only have 2 clients. But believe it or not, doing all those episodes have led to a lot more clients where I actually have a marketing firm now.
Wow, it's pretty cool. When you started your podcast, it was almost the first thing I thought of was like, you really identified that lane, which is so smart. It's like, I know the lane I want to start in. It doesn't mean we can't deviate. It doesn't mean we can't shift into another lane, but you had that lane and you like, let's Pat, it reminds me of Positively West Virginia. It's kind of like, like you have this lane. Very cool.
But you know what Kurt is that with where the difference is like, I just love Ben, like you said, your back was kind of up against the wall. It's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And to just dive into that just goes to show you, and anybody who's listening, it's like, take that chance, right? You're not really putting out a lot of money. You're not, you got to buy some equipment, but it's not that big of a risk. You just got to put your mind in the right headset and start going for it. And congratulations with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Ben, talk to us now. Give us a little bit, because Kurt, I don't know about you, but I get a fair amount of questions about the podcast itself. Like, how did you guys talk about, how did you guys decide to do this? And give me some background, right? And there have been people who come up to us and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting one. And, can you tell us a little bit? Ben, give us some of the things that you've learned and some of the things that's like, man, I wish I had that. I wish I could do that over again. Here's what I would do now, right? Give us some of those insights from a person who's gone through it more than we have.
From a podcast specifically?
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I'd say is I just wish I started earlier.
Yeah.
One thing that Gary V, just about everybody knows Gary Vaynerchuk, right? In the advertising marketing space. One thing that he does incredible, better than anyone else, and granted, he has a multi-million-dollar team to allow him to do it, is he documents everything. He documents everything. So part of the podcast is you don't need to be a audio wizard. You can get on Teams like we're on Microsoft Teams, or you could use Zoom and just record your conversations. Record those over the Pint conversations. And what Gary V does so well is he documents everything. So I guarantee that in the 16 hours, just thinking about what it would feel like to have a camera on me 16 hours a day, it would drive me crazy. But out of that 16 hours, he only needs about 20 to 30 minutes of gold per day. And then he breaks it up into micro content and, sends it everywhere. But he's not sitting down wondering what he's going to write about or talk about or how he's going to create content. He is the content. And what I love about podcasting is, especially in the business space, I was the dumbest person in the room for probably the first 6 months of my show. Now I'm humbly not the dumbest, but every day I have an opportunity to talk to people way smarter than me. The thing about the podcast is I don't have to come up with all the ideas and all the content. They provide the content because I just ask questions and they bring their truth and their skill set to the conversation. So that's the one thing I would do, guys, is I would start documenting, and I still should document more. One thing that I don't do that a lot of people do is they put a camera right next to them. So as I'm on a Zoom meeting talking to you, I can create a clip of me talking to you and turn that into a piece of content. So my short answer is document everything. Document everything that you can.
Cool. Hey, Ben, what's one of the things too that I've noticed about you, and I'm really digging, is the content that you put out on LinkedIn. Kurt and I, others, we spend a lot of time on that platform as just a way to connect with people. It's a way to look for new business. You're pretty prolific on there. I love the infographics that you do. If anybody hasn't checked it out, please go check out Ben. He's got some really awesome stats about LinkedIn, how to perform better on that. Share with us kind of your approach to LinkedIn, that platform. How do you go about posting content? What's your kind of philosophy? Break it down for us.
Sure. It's basically everything I just said. It's all about collaboration. It is all about, so I call it the CAN system, and I'm not going to go through every detail, but create, content, collaborate, and network. The reason and purpose of my networking is to find creative content collaboration opportunities. So that can be a podcast, which I post my podcast obviously on LinkedIn. A big one is those infographics you mentioned. So I don't have a single original thought. I mean, maybe I'll put my own insight in the blurb at the top, but those infographics aren't Ben sitting down doing original research or, creating the new best system. It's Ben reaching out to other influencers, for example, LinkedIn influencers, and being like, wow, I love your study you did about this. I'd love to take your study, turn it into a graphic. Do I have your understanding that I want you to obviously, I want you to engage on the post as well, but can we work together on this and you'll be engaged as well? The key here is if you tag a bunch of people and they don't engage on your post, it actually suppresses you. So I do make sure that the person that I'm creating content with understands that they need to be engaging on my post. But all my top performing posts, there's Richard Vandebloom. Again, it's LinkedIn. The other platforms get a lot more, but I got about 600 reactions. I got a couple hundred comments, over 10 shares, like 50,000 views. And it was me just repurposing. You guys can go to my LinkedIn and check it out. It's me just repurposing a study he did on the LinkedIn algorithm. But since he commented, I tagged him, he commented and was engaged in the comments as well. It went haywire and it hit all my connections. It hit all his connections, and then it started spreading because as more people comment, it hits their feed as well. But it was me just collaborating with someone with a much bigger audience than me. The second quick and easy example would be Hala Taha, Young and Profiting Podcast. She's my second highest performing post, and quite literally, it was a photo of her. She's 10 times more attractive than me, so that helps. But it was a photo of her and a quote from the podcast, and that went semi-viral as well. Again, without having to have these beautiful, great original thoughts, it was finding ways to collaborate with influencers to bring their audience to me while simultaneously providing value to their audience as well.
Damn, those are great tips, Ben. Thanks very much. So I just want to make sure I understand. So you first of all saw Richard's info about LinkedIn. You reached out to him and say, "Hey, I want to take that and turn it into an infographic. Are you cool with that?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's."
100%. That's exactly what it was. It was that simple. And it's funny. We made 20 different graphics. The ones that Richard engages with literally 10 to 15x the engagement than the ones that he doesn't. So I'm humble enough to realize that the reason those posts are popular is because his audience is coming to my feed. But why reinvent the wheel? He already has the audience. Let me be a distribution partner to create content to help those people.
Wow. What's kind of cool as you are describing your LinkedIn approach. I'm picking up on the how. And full disclosure to our listeners, we all three of us just got off a training seminar before we did this podcast where we talked about the importance of businesses identifying the why and the how. Those are really two big things. If you're going to differentiate and be successful, have a good how or a good why, or potentially both. Ben, from your perspective, so just from a business perspective, whether it's the podcast, your marketing business, without going too deep, but talk about, if you could, your why and your how and how those fit into your success.
Yeah, you guys have probably noticed it's hard for me not to go too deep. But I think we've touched on both of them a little bit. The why is I identify as an underdog. I know I'm a small business owner. I know that I'm very agile, but I'm new to the game. There's a lot of marketers with 30 years experience. I'm 30 years old. So I am an underdog. And I was a quiet kid. So I identify with other underdogs. I identify with other go-getters that want to grow and want to basically move at 3 times the speed so we can actually outplay these heavy hitters long term. So my why is really to find those people that I align with in a value sense and to inject steroids into what they do so I get to see them successful and become successful with them. Now, the how comes through collaborative networking. It comes through making friends above making clients. Because like I said before, if relationships equal currency, if I can create good relationships, I can build a book of business for life that isn't based on transactional commodity products like printer ink. It's based on building a community of those underdogs that want to go kick butt. So that would kind of be the why and the how in its simplest form.
Cool. Awesome answer. Awesome answer. So Ben, give us that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of where you're going. Break it down a little bit closer to earth. You've got a lot of things happening. What's your path? Where, give us the 5-year plan. Where's Ben Albert going?
Yeah. So people don't like this answer, or they like it. I don't know, but I don't have a 5-year plan. You guys know this in marketing. It's kind of impossible to know where the industry is going to be in 5 years. We can project, but it changes all the time. I know that if I win the day, and if I wake up and I get off to a good start, and if I make a couple introductions and I do some outreach and I service my clients and I reach out to people that maybe we aren't doing business with yet, if I do all those tangible basic steps that we need to do on every single day, I'm a little ADHD, my vision changes. But if I win the day, I know that I win the battle. So I don't know where I'm going to be here. I started off, selling website design, SEO, Google marketing, but most of my sales come through social selling and networking over LinkedIn. So I'm considering pivoting entirely to create a firm based around social selling and networking through LinkedIn, because that's where my sales come from. Maybe it's not the web design that I'm best at. Maybe it's this. I don't have a clear vision, but I do know that when I win the basics of the day, I don't really care where I am for 5 years, because I know I'm going to be kicking butt.
Ben, to me, you've got so many things going, and you strike me. And Kurt, what do you think? I mean, doesn't Ben strike you as just like hardcore entrepreneur? If you didn't know his backstory, wouldn't you say like, oh, this guy's just a hardcore entrepreneur type of guy?
Well, for sure. And I also, I'm still I just got to go back. That was a great answer, by the way, Pat. I mean,
Yeah.
you just served it up to say, give me the 5-year plan. Ben, loved your answer. Loved it. I love it. The best plan sometimes is no plan, but I love how you broke it down. Yes, Pat, 100%. We're
Right?
talking to an entrepreneur.
Right.
Absolutely.
But, Ben, admittedly, you're like, hey, I'm relatively new at this thing, right? So do you ever like look back and go, maybe I do want to be more on the corporate thing now that we are coming out of the COVID thing, and like, maybe the entrepreneur thing's not all that I want it to be? Or are you like, man, what did I do? Why was I with that organization selling, video production for so long? Why didn't I just do this? Right? I kind of think I know the answer, but I just like to hear from you.
Well, I think you might be surprised, because first off, I want to say I'm blessed to be in a relationship with a woman who takes care of herself, makes more money than I do, takes care of her family. So part of being an entrepreneur is taking on a lot of financial risk. And I already have a backbone and a partner that's kicking butt with or without me, which is helpful. Because the thought comes to my mind quite a bit. I'm like, so I'm doing this business podcast thing. I could do this for a corporation and they could pay me a couple $100,000 for all we know to be like a massive lead source and do PR, networking, all these things. And I could probably go and find that gig or create a role for myself. And I'd make way more money than I'm making now overnight. And I'd have a lot less risk. And it's really a sexy thought. But right now, I'm kind of obsessed with the control, and I love the falling forward. And again, if I wasn't in a relationship like the one I am, I might actually take a different route. And I don't shame anybody for trying entrepreneurship and realizing it wasn't a good fit for them. Because I dabble with that thought, Pat. I'm like, I could make more money elsewhere with less risk. But right now, I just love the freedom. That's the thing that I'm really enjoying the most right now is the freedom itself.
Awesome answer. Ben, you dropping all kinds of value bombs today. It has been so cool talking to you. What did we miss, Ben? What questions should we have asked you?
I think you asked great questions. I wish we could do 5 of these because I feel like we could chat for days.
Yeah.
I realize you guys are asking the questions, but I'm not so arrogant to. Honestly, you guys have been in the industry longer than me. I probably have about 50 questions I could ask you right now.
Well, we'll get you back on, man.
Yeah,
We'll have to do it again and let me do the question.
So you're saying bring Ben back on, and then Ben for a day plays the host of the Tonight Show.
There we go.
We sit on the couch. You're on something.
There we go. There we go.
Guest
That's a
host.
cool idea.
Yeah.
I like it.
Let's do
I
that.
like it.
Let's do that.
That'd be kind of cool.
Ben Albert, you have been awesome. This has been very cool. I am so glad that we've started developing a friendship, and I hope it keeps going on. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Ben, the mic's yours. Tell people how they find you, how they connect with you. Go.
Sure. We mentioned it. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So Ben Albert or Balbert Marketing, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And I did create a landing page to make life just easy for everyone. It's balbertmarketing.com. So B as in Ben, Albert as in Albert Einstein, but slightly smarter. Marketing.com/all links. All links. So balbertmarketing.com/all links. All my social media, the podcast, booking link if you want to jump on a coffee, chat virtually. That's all there. So go to balbertmarketing.com/all links and we'll hang out wherever you spend the most time.
Awesome. Ben, thanks very much. Make sure we'll get you back on. We'll have some more fun.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm excited.
Thank you, Ben.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.